Glin.
Hey, folks.
How you doing, Glin?
Doing pretty good.
Great. So
Yeah.
you are one of those folks who have been going for a while as well.
Yeah, so I started, I started playing, with the launch. I was up at 2 a.m. watching the forums, and I had been interviewing at the time, and it took about 3 months to land the gig, but I actually started in April, right after the first update. So I'd been on the team for a solid 8 years, and then had then transitioned over to Arkham Underworld. So.
Yeah, right. So are you a pirate in real life, or do you just play one in DDO?
Yeah, I'm a bard in real life, and a fighter and pirate in DDO. That's right. That's been my role.
Nice. So okay, were you always a producer in DDO?
I came in initially to launch in countries outside of Europe. So as I recall, it was French and German was already the localized languages that we supported. So I came in right at the start of that, working with Codemasters, and then came in as we brought on Shonda and Sakura, and then the Let's Game folks in Korea, and those were the Asian launches that we did. So I came in and sort of established the process for how we're doing that. Used a little bit of my engineering chops to do the UI changes that were necessary in there until eventually that was such a large part of our development that we got an engineer to come on for that. And then I was specifically the localization producer, so as anything regarding the external shipments, and those were all managed on different servers at the time, so every one of those was a different environment.
Right.
I did that.
Now, are you
probably
talking
for about a
just
year.
the French and German, or were you involved with any of the Sakura stuff?
Yeah,
as well?
no, all of those.
Okay.
I was there at the beginning of those, so when we established those relationships, how we worked out the process, the tools we needed to build to support it, all the deployment schedules. Turbine hadn't done any of that in the past, so that was all very new stuff. And now it's just sort of, we have a whole department for it. It's very standard to do localization. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in the early days of that.
Cool. We should mention that we're basically talking about an Asian version of DDO. Was it, what were the territories? Do you remember?
Yeah, Japan, China, and Korea.
Okay, Japan, China, and Korea. Cool.
Yeah, each of those.
And eventually that, got folded away, but, for that was the first, actually. When DDO first came out, that's where it first came before even French and German.
No, it was at launch. It was supporting French and German.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I want to say Codemasters launched within the month after
right.
launch.
Okay.
So it was already live technically when I started. Again, so I came in right after Update 1, which was first week of April, and I was in. I got hired the week after that. That was one of those moments where I was. Pretty good spot, thinking that Turbine liked me and that they wanted to find a position for me, and
what a mistake!
And then I went
Jeez, what
a
were we
month,
thinking?
month of dead air. So I thought and it wasn't my first time interviewing too. I had interviewed 3 years before for an engineering position at the time.
Okay.
And that's what I had been doing prior. So
Nice.
I was an engineer, game developer prior to coming on as a producer, and I had taken on producer project management roles prior to starting here, so that was a convenient transition. I was not as good an engineer as the engineers we actually have here, so it was a good career move for me to change.
I think we might actually end up playing part of that podcast we recorded way back in the day, where we get into this a little bit, but you actually have some history in the music business.
Yeah. I was a recording engineer before I got into computer design.
Yeah. Could you tell any stories there? Any albums we might know or anything like that?
Well, I worked a lot of time in the live world. So I was in Huntington Beach area and had bands like Korn and 311 and Sublime, Ika Mouse in the reggae genre, a few things like that. And recording wise, yeah, there were a few bands that came in. I did some GarageBand stuff, but I mostly did mastering, which at the time we had this really expensive box. It was about $3,500, and it recorded CDs, like right there,
Really,
in front
right
of
on
you.
CDs?
Yeah,
That's
right
funny.
on the CD. Really impressive technology. Very expensive though.
Yeah.
Not something the consumer can usually get their hands on. So now I just dated myself a whole bunch.
Hey, you could have said 8-track. You could have said 8-track.
I didn't say 8-track. Yeah. My grandma had an 8-track.
Right.
That helps. But I started out there, and then that was a really erratic work schedule because I would be doing like a 16-hour day, but there'd be these big gaps in between. I'd be working till 3 or 4 in the morning. So what I did to kill time was I started playing with the Mac, doing 3D rendering, and then they invented the World Wide Web somewhere in there, Al Gore, and I started transitioning to web development. So that was my start in the industry for getting into gaming. After that,
Kind of back to DDO, I know that you were very busy around the free-to-play launch. Is that correct?
very busy. In
Like
terms
you were
of,
working
like,
for DDO, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've always been on DDO.
Yeah. So what?
And so it was the first
Yeah.
year I did the localization, and then I took the producer role. I think about a year and a half in.
Yeah.
So
Is it safe to say that going free to play is one of the biggest things DDO ever did?
Gosh, probably the biggest thing Turbine's ever done.
Yeah.
In terms of. Well, maybe I wasn't here for the creation of the first game engine,
Yeah, right,
which
right.
is impressive in itself. But the free-to-play undertaking was daring for the industry. Western culture-wise, it wasn't a thing anybody ever did. We modeled a little bit after what we'd seen with our China partners and some things we tried with them. And there were definitely some ideas that they had asked for, that sort of a hybrid concept of how do we do free play. Those things were ideas that we branched off of. How do we do this in the Western market? But figuring out how much people wanted to invest when they didn't have to invest in playing a game that they wanted. How much do we give you for free? These were all really new concepts. This idea of the people that have not a lot of time but want to still progress. Maybe it's just to play with their friends. Maybe it's they just want to get the experience and don't have a lot of time for it. But they have the cash instead. That was sort of
Right.
our initial philosophy. How do we do this thing? I have more time than money, or more money than time.
Yeah.
So there's a big learning curve for everybody to do that.
And
The technical undertaking, that was really focused on making the game more accessible.
Well, in making some pretty tough choices, what will if you think about it at the time, the idea of a free-to-play game in the Western market was not always positive, right? The community that played these MMOs was somewhat resistant to the idea of a free-to-play game, and so
Yeah, 'cause we didn't wanna be
one of the
pay to
things we
win.
wanted to do was free-to-play done right. Well, what does done right mean when it comes to DDO? And I think, frankly, one of the reasons DDO has been as successful as it is because we did do it right. We made some changes over the years, but we launched in a pretty good place.
Yeah, we certainly
Yeah.
learned a lot in
Yeah.
8 years of free to play.
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaways were we didn't want it to feel like pay to win. We wanted it to be pay to progress. But DDO is a little bit unique. For some other models might have that as more of a trap, that you can just pay to be on the top of a leaderboard. But it's not really what DDO is about.
Yeah.
DDO is about having an adventure, and
So
not
we
about
never
winning.
got our leaderboards working. I'm kidding.
Oh, we used to have an anniversary cake of leaderboards not shipped.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Let's see.
But so this idea that this is what the community is talked about over the years too. It's like it's not pay to win if unless you classify winning as I completed the dungeon, but you still have to play the dungeon.
Right.
And you might be able to get yourself more powerful faster, or save time by not having to go back to the tavern. I mean, these were kind of the basic philosophies again. This is the early days of what are we going to offer to players. And then we started taking advantage of those things that are really great for D&D. This idea of a sort of a module concept.
Right.
The same thing as the retail. The retail game box.
And what's interesting is nowadays, I don't know. I mean, free to play is the default expectation now for online games in many ways in general, but particularly in the MMO space. I mean, it's not uncommon for some of the larger, say, AAA ones to maybe launch with a sort of a premium model, that sort of thing. But almost all of them eventually have gone some sort of free to play. So we're both a trendsetter, and I think somewhat. Other companies have looked to what DDO did right when it came time to bring that to their games.
Yeah, lots of articles out there in the archives about how DDO did it versus how someone else is doing it, how somebody else is doing it, taking what they learned from DDO, and going back prior to that, it's DDO being a trendsetter. So really proud of those accomplishments. I don't think it's done anything but good for the game industry, because it really is, I'm using that word again, accessibility. It lets you jump in without a commitment, and whether you've got the cash for it or not. I play a lot of free-to-play games because I like to experiment something, and I don't always financially commit to something that I don't really appreciate.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it lets me opt in.
So 2016 finds producer Glin currently working on our Batman mobile project.
Yeah, our first mobile initiative for Turbine.
Yep. And what are you doing there?
So I'm the senior producer on the project. We've got a pretty large team now.
Yeah.
As you know, a lot of DDO devs.
Yeah.
The day-to-day, we've got a agile development format. We're constantly working on our planning, grooming our backlog of the things that need to get done, and I've also got to keep an eye on our betas and our soft launch targets.
Yeah.
What are we delivering at what quality? Those are the producery things to do. A lot of cat herding in the day-to-day. So I was just discussing this the other day with someone.
So are you Batman, or are you the Commissioner, or are you
which character?
Yeah. Or are you the Joker? The evil devious
I got
one.
it. On the supervillain tier of things. I think I'm a big Riddler fan, anyways. So I think I'll wear that hat.
Nice. Well, thanks, Glin. I really appreciate you stopping by and saying hi to us here for DDO's 10th anniversary.
Yeah, and I'll be around. We're going to be playing games all day.
You bet we will. Yeah, well, I'll be here. You'll be playing games. I should mention we have a company sort of DDO celebration going on as well today. So
right.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, we'll be going past your podcast. But been watching all of this and keeping an eye on the chat. So hope people keep engaged today and have some fun.
Great.
We'll see you online.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.